The following is a presentation of Surprise Church. El siguiente programa es la presentación de la iglesia Surprise.
We're in a series right now called Fishers of Men. It started last week. It's a series that talks about what this actually means. When Jesus called his first disciples, he said, "Come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And it's kind of like, well, that's interesting. But he's telling this to fishermen who are together engaged in an act of casting it into the boat or getting the nets ready to go fishing. And so he's calling these groups of men who were also family together into a group that would be family in Jesus together and then learn how to do exactly that net casting, but do it in a different way into the world that God called them to. And so we've noticed that from the beginning, the call to follow Jesus is always a call to help other people follow Jesus. With that, let's pray as we dive in to deeper understand what that means. Heavenly Father, I pray today that we do not just skim the surface, but go deep. Help us drink deeply from the cup you're putting in front of us. And every time we come face to face with your word, it's intimidating. As a pastor, I find no escape from the intimidation that comes from trying to understand you and understand your word under my own power. We can't do it. We just can't. We're separate from you. You're holy and we're broken. And so we need you to fill us with your Holy Spirit today. Soften our hearts, open our minds so that we don't just go on our merry way doing what we think is right or wrong, but have a bigger picture of the world that looks a lot more like yours than ours. God, some of us came today in a really, really difficult place in life. Some of us might be humming along great, but some of us are just carrying a painful load and a burden that no one should have to carry. Help us to put it on your shoulders. Take your yoke upon us and learn from you. Bless the hearing and teaching of your word today, Lord, and of course, very importantly, we pray that the Minnesota Vikings crush the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Important to add that in there. You know, Jesus said to pray about everything. So I want to put this statement in front of you today and just see how it feels. You will lead unbelievers to Jesus Christ. You're going to do this. Pause for effect. One of my alter egos, and I have several that I know about, is Captain Kindness. And I see kids in the street all the time that ask me to fly because they've seen me at schools and in my red tights and cape. And I tell them I can fly, but I can't inside because I'll break a hole in the ceiling tiles. Then they catch me outside and like, all right, let's see it. I'm like, oh, I sprained my flying part, whatever that is. And so I can't fly today. But during Camp Kindness, which you do every summer, this summer we reached over 300 kids and families who wanted to be a part of Camp Kindness and teaching kids how to lead by being kind. And one kid in particular was just a stinker. You know, I know that all kids at Camp Kindness are supposed to be kind, but that's why we do it, right? Because we're trying to teach them how. And this kid was just a little snot. And I was tempted to play the principal role, to just really come down hard on him and send him home with tears in his eyes. But I thought, that doesn't really live up to the name of what we're doing. So I pulled him aside, and I'm like, you are a leader. And now in this small group where you're being such a stinker, I want you to be the assistant leader to the leader of the group, and I want you to make sure that other kids are having a discussion that's really, really deep and important, okay? And I'm going to ask you how they did and who did really well, and I'm also going to ask you who didn't do so well, okay? Can you be the leader in this group? Because I think you're a leader. And this little punk, this little turd bucket, went from this rebellious look in his eyes, chest kind of forward like he's creeping around like a little gremlin. And when I told him he's a leader, his shoulders went like this. His chest. You know how we do this, guys? Chest popped up. Literally. He developed a chest. Pulled his pants up like this. And he started, the side-to-side hip thing. He turned in from a little snot to a big guy, leader, non-snot, just by being told, you're a leader. Now, if that's true with an elementary, It's not. If it's true with a kid that has some issues, I think it's true with you and me when Jesus tells us, if you follow me, I'm going to make you a fisher of men. In other words, you, and I'm speaking individually to you, you will lead people to Jesus Christ. Now, I want you to just take note of the reflex that you get, not the reflux. That's a separate thing that you take a pill for. Keep the acid in your stomach. The reflex that you get when I tell you that, the absolutely not that comes up in the back of your mind. I can't because. If you only knew my past, read the Bible, folks. Paul the Apostle killed Christians. Literally, he murdered them. And God said, you're going to fish for people. I can't do it. Peter denied knowing Jesus after spending 3 years with him, denied that he even knew Jesus when push came to shove. Jesus is like, I'm using that guy. I'm using that guy. King David committed adultery with a man, with a man's wife. Okay, I'm going to start over. He committed adultery with a man's wife, and then when she got pregnant, he killed the man. So he commits adultery and murder. And God's like, I'm going to use that king, and then his offspring is going to be the Savior. He takes a prostitute, and he uses a prostitute. He takes people that are uneducated, and he uses them to tell the truth of God and to shame wise people who are uber educated. He loves using people who say, I can't be used. We have some folks here that I just love from Team Challenge. Casey Bell, one of my favorite people in the world. Give Casey some serious love. Give it to her. She's awesome. Works with Team Challenge. This gal has a story, and you'll see her throughout the community. I found a video of you on Facebook on the morning show. You did great. You're just like a TV personality. Keep it up. But she just helps people, amen. She just helps people learn that the story doesn't end with brokenness and sin, and in her own life and her own journey through addiction recovery, and she helps people see that this can be you too. And she knows that God doesn't just save us to sit, he saves us to send us. And this is not just true for people who struggle with addiction. This isn't just true for people who struggle with sexual sin. This isn't just true for people who have been injured and wounded and need healing. This is true for you. Jesus never saves you to sit you. He wants to help other people discover his love through you. And if you don't let that be a part of your story, you are refusing to let God write the story that he dreamed of writing in your life from the moment he made the world. He envisioned that story playing out in you and through you, and I believe it's going to happen. And all the reservations that you feel are exactly the reservations that he's like, yeah, that's why I need you. Because the rest of the people that you help lead into my family are going to have those same reservations. And if you're a super stallion stud all-star Christian that has it all together, they're going to look and say, I can never, ever be like that. Instead, I need you to be a little bit of a punk, a little bit of a turd, a little bit of a person that has a life in chaos, out of order, disjointed, so that people can say, well, you know what? If Pastor Matt can get up there, come on. Guy barely remembers his name half the time. I think I can do this. You will lead people to Jesus. And if you're not yet doing that, if you're not yet comfortable saying, I know I could do that. I could take someone by the hand, help them understand the story of the gospel, and then I could also take them by the hand from that moment and lead them to accept Jesus, and then I could take them and I could help them to start developing a life rhythm within community to live out that relationship. I can do that. If you don't think that you could say that about yourself yet, that is okay. Okay? Today is not about making you feel guilty for not being able to do that. I just want you to know where you're going and where he's taking you, and any other direction would be a failure. That's any other direction other than I'm following Jesus so I can help other people follow Jesus is absolutely not God's plan for your life. So just wipe that idea out of your mind and say, I'm here because God has a plan for me to help other people learn how to follow Jesus. Even if you're not a Christian yet. If you're here and you're like, Christians are kind of weird. Pastors are a perfect example of that. I'm not sold on this thing at all. I like your cookies. Coffee's good. But I'm really not sold on this. That's fine. I'm just here to tell you that I don't think you're here by accident, and I really do believe that you're here in part, not just to yourself decide whether you want to be in on this thing, but to live into God's dream for your life that includes you leading others to him. Okay? I just believe that about you. Call me crazy. I think that's true. You will do it. Now, that means that if you accept Jesus, if you say, all right, I'm going to surrender, God, I'm going to stop running and stop trying to create a world that is my own version of the story, but I'm going to live into yours, that means that you're a disciple maker. Or if you don't feel like you could help someone learn how to follow Jesus yet, that means you're a disciple maker in the making. At Surprise, I always tell people, don't say you go to Surprise. I hear people say that about churches in the city. Like, I go to this church, or I go to that church. I would much rather our people say, I'm a part of the Surprise community. I'm a part of the Surprise mission. I live out the Surprise movement. Because Surprise, we put the trailer and all their stuff back in the trailer, and this isn't a church anymore. It's just a tool that we use to gather as a church, and then we go out and be the church 7 days a week. And so you're a disciple maker. You're not a person who goes to church. You're a person who becomes the church more and more as you learn how to follow God. And becoming the church means to help other people. So we don't make disciples as a church. We make disciples who make disciples. We make disciple makers as a church. That's our vision. And I think the reason we have to be clear on that is, yes, Jesus says to make disciples, but he assumes what that means is that you're going to make disciples who reproduce. You're going to not just be an orphanage, as we described last week, that has one pastor, one chef, that doles out the buffet to people who sit and just consume like baby birds, that we're actually a family, and healthy families have children who grow up and then have their own families. I'm not saying that happens in every single case, but generally that's the plan. That's how God made it to work. And so the church is meant to be a family of people who grow up and learn how to reproduce themselves, who learn how to share the story and help new people become a part of this. And if that weren't true of the person who welcomed you, you wouldn't be here. So we know that it must have worked for us to even be here today as a brand new church. It must have worked for us to be able to send a bunch of disciple makers to Mandan with Pastor Tim and Andy and the whole launch team. It must be true because they're now reproducing, and we're reproducing and having a baby church, and they're going to be doing the same thing. That's how it's meant to work, or none of us would be here. That also means that we're not individual Christians. We're a part of a family. A lot of times we get it wrong and we think of faith as an individual relationship, a kind of a private phone booth. And I know anybody under 30 has never seen a phone booth, and that's okay. But an individual private thing between us and God. And the reality is that, as I said, it's a family. Jesus is building a family. If you're taking notes, this is a good one to write down. A family of servant missionaries. You're going to come across people who had a terrible family experience growing up. Maybe you did. Maybe it was ideal. Maybe not. And to help someone else understand a God who actually wants to see them as his kids, who wants them to understand that God is a loving father rather than a rule giver or a punishment doler, that's a big deal. And to help them understand that when they believe, it's not just that you force someone into an intellectual corner where they have to admit that historically I believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, and so I guess I'm a Christian, but it's actually, I believe this is true about what happened, but I believe that then this is true about me, and therefore I'm going to be a part of a family that lives this out. That's making disciples, is becoming a part of the Christian family that lives out the resurrection in real time. So just know that when we talk about making disciples, we're not talking about you standing eye to eye with a stranger on the street and trying to get him to admit something is true. It's you learning how to share the adoption that you have received, to welcome people into a community that you call your family. That is how we are defining missional community. At Surprise, in your Connect card, you'll notice we have a list of missional communities that meet outside of Sunday mornings, that do life together, that share a meal every week, that have a specific part of the city that they want to impact for the gospel. They want to disciple people in a certain part of the city, married couples, trying to reach married couples, trying to reach single parents, trying to reach people struggling with addiction or looking for recovery, people who are teenagers and teenage families, cancer victims. We have a missional community that someone is wanting to start to help reach parents of kids who have addictions. And they're going to get together, they're going to share a meal every week, they're going to do some life-on-life discipleship, identity formation that we talked about last week, and they're also going to do what we're going to talk about this week, life and community. Missional communities have 3 elements. We're taking on one every week. Life and life, a couple people that help remind each other who they are in Jesus. Life in community, which is a group of people that does life together, and we're going to have to explain what that looks like today, and next week we're going to talk about what it lives to live life on mission in community, because Jesus didn't call one person. He called groups of people together to be a group of people that fishes for people together. In our Western, privatized, hyper-individualized version of Christianity or spirituality, we have no framework to process a communal faith family. And we have to be countercultural in this way, or we're just going to be spiritual consumers. That's all we're going to be. Who show up, sit in rows, stare at the back of someone's head, and then go back to work and say, I don't know how to do this, so I'm just going to go back to church next Sunday, And so life in community is so important for us to push past, in a counterculture way, the hyper-privatization that happens. And to do that, God's word helps us. When we're in a group of people, a missional community, a regular group of folks that say, okay, we're going to band together to try to help each other grow. We're going to open up God's word, and we're going to let God's word shape our lives in a way that we can't on our own. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an assignment here. Grab a pen, grab your sermon note bulletin. There's a passage in your bulletin that's printed out, 1 Peter 2. So it's a beautiful passage, just a phenomenal passage. And here's what I want you to do. We'll play a little Jeopardy music or whatever they can find back there. Give you a minute. What I want you to do is I want you to go through this passage, circle everything that is past, that refers to something that happened in the past. It's done. It happened. Or if it's continuing to happen, it's focusing on what happened in the past. Square off everything that has happened as a present tense statement, and then underline everything that is a future statement. This is a great way to study the Bible. Sometimes you can just circle all the verbs and just note the activity happening in the passage. Sometimes you just focus on all the names or adjectives that are given to God. And this is one where you sort out the chronology of a passage to kind of get a sense of the big picture that it's creating and painting. Circle the past. And you can start right now. Square the present, the whole sentence or whatever phrase. Underline what refers to the future. Take 30 more seconds and just make it happen. Go. Not bad, not bad. All right. Sorry to make you think so early. That's why we provide coffee, by the way. Let's see if those of you who are able to get this done, let's see if yours looks a little bit like mine. Okay, I made mine different colors just so you could see them easier on the screen. Circle, square, underline. Check this out. It's the whole doggone thing. Pretty much every word is meant to show us where we fit as Jesus followers into the big past, present, future saga that God says is the real story. They stumble. Wait a minute, that answers a question for me. Why are so many people making so many stupid decisions? Why is there so much crime, drug abuse, pain, loss, brokenness? Why? They stumble because they disobey the message. God actually wants to thrive, and he provides guidance and leadership for how to live life, but people don't always follow that leadership, and so they stumble. It helps us process human suffering, which is also what they were destined for. So God's not out of control. This is actually what he created consequences for disobeying his message so that people would know that they're off target. He destined people to screw up so that they could see that they need to get back on track with God. But you, now this is not your story, you are not a part of a story that ends in you screwing up. But you, present tense, are a chosen people. You're chosen by God. And I'm not sure if all of us believe that or not today. And I just think, when we open this up together, especially in a circle of people who can really say, this is true for you, why are you not believing this? You're chosen. You're a royal priesthood. A priest is a go-between between God and people. You're God's rep in the world. You're his ambassador in the world. You're a holy nation. God's special possession. I was cleaning out my daughter's Barbies yesterday. I'm like, okay, there's like 70 Barbies here. We're getting rid of at least 17 of them. We're getting rid of these. I mean, they have no head anymore, and they have no clothes anymore, and that's just weird for my son, so I'm getting rid of them, right? And my daughter the look on her face was like I just emptied her bank account, her college savings plan, and spent it on myself. It was just, those 17 headless Barbies are my friends, right? They're her special possession. We give out balloons all the time at surprise outreach events. Pam at the computer back there has led a great number of outreach endeavors this summer. We give kids balloons. And parents don't understand that when their kids lose their balloon, it's a big deal. You know? Parents are like, it's just a balloon. Who cares? Just get over it. We'll get you another one. Well, imagine if your wallet just floated up into the sky. That's what just happened to your kid. Your wallet floated away. It was special. Now, God looks at you and he sees someone that isn't an accident, that is deeply special. Too often we miss that aside from all the rules and all the words and confusing kind of different opinions about God and church and religion, at the heart of it is a God who decided to die in order to show you that you matter to him. Behind all those other questions of life, you don't always get the answer you want. Sometimes there are no answers. Why did the Holocaust happen? Ask him when you get to heaven. I don't know. But when he died on the cross, he answered the most important question about you. That you're chosen, that you're special, that you matter, and that your life has purpose. It does not have just a choose your own adventure, flop around like a fish out of water for a while. It's fish for people. You're chosen to choose. You're found to help other people be found. You're a found finder. So Peter here is helping them locate their specialness in God's election. And the underlined yellow there is the only thing related to the future. Look how now when we highlight what relates to the future, one thing explodes with brightness. When we let this passage speak to us, we see that everything God did in the past and everything he's doing in the present is for one purpose, and that is so that we can declare the praises of him who called us in the past out of the darkness and into his wonderful light. Everything he's doing in your life is not just meant to help you get a job or not get a job or get a wife or a husband or not get a husband or get retired with a better nest egg or not. Everything is part of a much, much bigger story. It's so that you can declare his praises, that you can live a life that actually points people upward to the biggest, most majestic reality in all of reality. That your life lives for the thing that matters most. And he chose you so that you could declare him. He fished for you so that you could fish for others. He called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once, listen, this is just beautiful poetry. Once you were not a people. You were a nobody. But now, present tense, blue box, you are the people of God. Once you'd not received mercy, but now you've received mercy. In other words, when you read this passage with groups of people who can sit down and say, how are you doing this week in this area of your life? Because last week you were really, really struggling to believe that God would forgive you for buying and selling drugs. Last week you were really, really struggling to believe that God would forgive you for sleeping with someone that was not your spouse. Last week you were really, really struggling with the fact that you were being an abusive spouse. Last week you were really, really struggling with the fact that you were so stressed out, anxious, and depressed, and you believe in Jesus, and people who believe in Jesus shouldn't have those kind of problems. Last week, that was where you are. Do you need us to remind you of this today? How are you doing today, realizing that that was the old you? And that you were a nobody until Jesus got a hold of you and claimed you as somebody, and that has nothing to do with your behavior. If God had to choose loving you based on whether you deserved it, he wouldn't love you. If he had to choose whether to adopt you in his family when you've got your act together, he would have no family. He has chosen to die in your place to redeem you apart from your deservedness so that you could help other people who do not believe that God could be that good and gracious and kind and surprising, that they can see that playing out in your life, and that if he believes it and if she believes it and he or she believes that that could be true for me, maybe it could be. So how are you doing in that area this week? Last week was a struggle for you. And we're here to remind you that you are somebody to God. We're here to tell you that you do have mercy. That Jesus, the Bible says, my mercy is new every morning. You might feel really groggy and crappy and tired in the morning. You might feel guilty for the decisions you made yesterday or the dreams you had overnight or just the feeling of another day. But you need to know that God wakes up in the morning. Actually, he doesn't wake up in the morning. He doesn't even sleep. He watches you all night. And then when you wake up, he says, I'm choosing mercy again today because you are somebody. You are a chosen race, a holy priesthood, a holy nation, my special possession. And I'm choosing you again today in order that you might be a fisher of men, in order that you might declare in the way that you live your life, in the way that you walk the walk, in the way that you talk the talk, that you might actually speak about me, that your life would be an echo of the musical vibration that I am giving to the world in Jesus. Now, if I don't have this, how the hell am I going to do that? If I don't have people helping me see this, I'm a fish flopping around on the beach out of the water. If I don't have people that can say, dude, this is true for you, man. And I'm listening to you talk about how it doesn't seem to be true, and I just need to remind you that it's true. I know you and I love you. We've heard this dance in your life before. Stop it. If you don't have anybody sorting through this to you and applying it to you, and if you're not doing this in someone's life, you're missing out on a gigantic, essential nutrient of living as a fisher of men. You're not going to see your place in the universe. But when you do this, you see two very important things. Number one, you see the story. Disciples teach each other how to see themselves within God's big story. This helps us to process human suffering, and it frames our own before and after story. I have a story to tell when I practice telling my story with Jesus as the hero with other people who understand what that's supposed to look like. So I'm able to see the reality of God when I'm around people that believe in that reality. Have you ever tried to be like a Vikings fan around nobody else who's a Vikings fan? It's hard enough on your own. Good grief. The team just pulls the rug out from under me every year. But you know what? You surround yourself with enough Vikings fan, you can do it. That's why they built a big new stadium, you know. We need each other. And if it's hard to cheer for a struggling team every year, think how hard it is to live for God you can't see. When there's stadiums of people cheering against you. When the world seems to be cheering for the other team. And yet God says, I want you to love that world. I want you to live in that world. I want you to be in the world but not of the world. And I want you to help me transform that world through love and grace. That ain't easy. And if you try to do that on your own, you will utterly fail. If you try to be a fisher of men with one fishing rod, you're going to catch a whale and it's going to pull you right into the water and swallow you. Disciples were fishing in community with nets, and they needed each other. You need each other. So you can see your place in the big story, process all of reality, hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, in the span of a bigger picture that God actually is not out of control, God actually is real, and He's actually factored all of this in, and He can work through all of it. And I get how this, I don't understand it, but I get that there is a story that this somehow fits into. Okay? So if you talk to a middle schooler, I now have a middle schooler. Pray for me, please. Talk to a middle schooler that has a ginormous pimple right there. They're a different person. Because now their identity has been reset by a Mount Everest on their nose. They're already at a time in life where their identity is in question. Their limbs are longer than they were a year ago by about 1.5 feet. Their voices are doing weird things. You know, it's just a weird time. I mean, it's nuts. And then, 2 years older than me, the guy is like 3 feet taller because, something happens and there's hair everywhere. I don't get this. That acne, that pimple, is who that person is. When they go to school, they're only showing the good sides. They're walking like this. Teacher calls on them. They're like, yes, C. On the board, C, I think. They're looking at a mirror just so they can see what's going on in the front of the classroom. Everything revolves around, since this is who I am, I don't want you to see it because you're going to think that this is who I am, and it is who I am, and I don't see who I am apart from how I look and how others might perceive me. I'm basing my identity on the perceptions around me, and it's a very scary, very lonely time. So your life story is condensed to a small, semi-small pimple on your nose. God, middle schoolers are just like grown-ups, aren't they? Your pimples are just in different places. You just have to have people that show you that your pimple isn't you, that your addiction isn't you, that your record isn't you, that you are defined by the one who died. He can't be followed alone. He must be followed as a family because that's what he's called you into. Second thing you learn from seeing this story in community, having a regular group of people that you get to digest the story of God together with, is that you realize you can't embrace or share the gospel unless you learn how to talk and pray about it in a gospel-centered community. Go to work tomorrow. Go to school tomorrow. And if you don't have anybody in your life that you talk about Jesus with, it's going to be painful to try to do it with your friends or enemies or teammates. It's going to be completely confusing. If someone says, why do you go to that church and what do you believe again? You're going to be like a deer in the headlights because there is no place in your life where it's easy to talk about God and it's easy to talk about faith. And so to leap from not talking about it to talking about faith and to trying to display the gospel through behavior in a place where it's foreign to the people you're talking to is impossible. Don't do it. Start in a place where it's easy. That's the family. When you go home from church today, you know what you're going to do? You're going to squeeze into those torn sweatpants, aren't you? You're going to eat the best leftovers in the fridge, and you're going to order pizza. You're going to turn the football game on. And you're going to sit there. You're going to let your belly out on the couch. You're going to have a soda or a Amber Bock, and you're going to sit there and watch the Vikings crush the Steelers or the Packers lose. And you're going to be with family, and you're going to feel safe. At least I pray that that's your home environment. And if you don't have that space, if you're like some of the kids that we talked about in the United Way video that actually have to bring food home on the weekends because there's no food there, and maybe there aren't even parents there most of the time, it's very hard to go out into the world as if you have those needs met. You need a place to talk about the gospel where it's safe. There's a guy named Matt Kent. Kent was his last name. We called him Kent because we had the same first name. He was an awesome dude, and he was like the guy that if he would ever ask a girl out, they would always say yes because he was really good looking and smart and successful, and all the guys were jealous, and he was just the coolest guy in the world, but he's also really open to spiritual things. And I was living with a group of guys that lived together because we just wanted to have that safe space where we could talk about our faith and pray together and real open about it. We wanted to be a part of a missional community, a community that was on mission together, that kept each other focused on the before, during, and after story of God, and we didn't settle for a lesser version of the story of the pimple in our life and the problem in our life. And so we just did this, and he kept on being intrigued, and he started coming over and hanging out with us, and he was like, can I move in with you guys? We're like, yeah. Divide rent by 8? Sure. And pretty soon he starts talking the story with us. It's safe. He starting to learn how to define himself and explain his before, during, and after with Jesus as the hero. And then he began to be more comfortable talking about that openly on campus and with friends and with family. He became fluent with the gospel, gospelese. He became gospel fluent. He learned how to talk about the God he said he loved. He fell in love with him and then learned how to talk to him. And if you've been married for a long time and you have not learned how to talk to your wife about how much you love her, you've got to learn how to do this. Get together with some guys who are like touchy-feely. Figure this out because she needs to hear that from you. And if you've been in love with Jesus for a while but you've never learned how to talk to him, he's going to start to feel like an imaginary friend. And people are going to have no use for you. The very person that God has put in their life to be able to point them in the right direction and help them get adopted into the family of God, you're not going to be the bridge that might be the only one they have. Here's the deal. We need to talk about Jesus where it's easy in order to live for Jesus when it's hard. And if you haven't written anything down, my message, this is worth writing, man. This is like if you've been seriously on your phone the whole time and just tuning me out, this is all you need right here, okay? You need a place to talk about Jesus where it's easy in order to talk about and live for Jesus where it's hard. Way too many Christians in our privatized culture, all they do is they go to church when it works, and then they try to figure out why, because it doesn't seem to make any difference. And then eventually they say, well, it must just be the preacher, or it must just be the music. There's a church over there that has awesome coffee, and they give you a latte. Like you walk in the door, bam, latte in my hands. I'm going to that church, because that might finally Help me figure out why there's this gap in my life, this hole in my life, why Jesus still feels like an imaginary friend, and I don't feel like this is making a difference in my problems and my pain, and I feel like all I have to live for is this thing that doesn't satisfy me and doesn't fulfill me, and it's just like, what's the deal? So they go from church to church, movement to movement, maybe city to city, job to job, not realizing that the answer is the people God has put around them who love Jesus, love them enough to talk about it where it's safe, so they can talk about it where it hurts, where the world is hurting, where it's broken. I don't know if this resonates with you today. I hope it does. But I just want you to imagine your life if this is a part of it. I was telling our surprise team this week, we want to be a church of 1,000 disciple makers by the year 2020. That means 1,000 people who don't just say, I go to Surprise Church and I sit and consume religious goods and services. I honestly don't care about that. If we get 1,000 people who just come, that's just more chairs for us to set up, frankly. Set up team, that doesn't sound good for us, does it? We'll pull the bleachers out, I guess, I don't know. But 1,000 disciple makers? 1,000 people who know how to put the net together? Who get together with their fellow fishermen and be like, hey, what time are we going out today? Where are the good spots to fish? What are the good restaurants that we want to go out to eat at? Because those waiters there have a need, and we've been connecting with them. Where's the coffee shop that we're going to go because the barista's there? We just feel like God is calling us and nudging us to love on them. And we're going to get together, and we're going to talk about Jesus where it's easy with us. And then when the waiter comes to the table, we're going to talk about Jesus where it's hard. We're going to ask the waiter, like, how is he doing? How's life? And we're going to listen to the felt needs of the baristas and the waiters, or the people in the neighborhood where we gather, or the playground we hang out at and grill in our front yard. And we're going to listen to the felt needs, and they're going to learn how to meet those felt needs, and we're going to learn how to ask people about their stories so that we can talk about our story with Jesus as the hero. And something's going to start to change in our relationships, because Jesus is no longer an imaginary friend. He's no longer a phone booth imaginary God that I just check the box and say, I did the church thing this week, and I guess I'm supposed to feel something, but I don't. He is my hero. And now I'm learning how to talk about the hero. I got people around me that are cheering the hero on in my life. I got people around me that are here to say, get back in the game, bro. You're living a different story. Your story relates to finances more than it relates to Jesus. Your story relates to romance more than it relates to Jesus. Your story relates to pleasure more than it relates to Jesus. Don't you dare settle. We love you too much to let you settle. And guess what? The people in your life need you too much for you to settle. What's the story, bro? What's the story that you're living in today? Do you have people that can look at you and say, come on, live the right story, soak in the story, touch the gospel, put your finger in his holes in his side and his hands, like he told his disciples, touch me, put your finger in there, look around the circle of the people who believe this impossible thing has actually happened, that I died for you, I rose for you, and I am going to walk you in community through life so that you're not just following me, you're not just a consumer, you're a fisherman. You're sent. I'm going to end where I started, folks. I'm going to end where I started, and I do believe this is true about you. If Jesus Christ has called you, he has not called you to sit in this church on Sundays. Please find another church. If you believe that he has called you to Surprise to sit, find a church where he is going to equip you to get sent. Go to Mandan. If you believe that you can't serve here, you don't feel like this is the place for you to serve and to lean into the Great Commission, to make a difference in lives, find a church where you want to do more than just attend, because I will have not done my job. And I'm accountable to God for telling you the truth about this. I will have not done my job if I say, this is great. Just come when you can. We'll do our best to get enough volunteers to make sure that you got what you need when you come. That's awesome. I'm not doing my job unless I say that I believe that you will lead people to Jesus Christ. And my wife and I picked up everything we had, moved across state line to North Dakota 3 years ago to plant this church, because we believe that there are people here that God wants to be a part of his family. There are as many as 50,000 people who do not know the story of Jesus Christ, who are making their decisions about life, about chemical use, about relationships, about finances, without this story, without the story of a God who loves them, who died for them, and who has got an answer to every pain and burden in their life. Whether he fixes it now or in the resurrection, he has the answers. They just need the story, and they need you to not just recycle something you heard on Sunday, but have digested the story enough with people that you know how to apply it into their lives, take them by the hand, and say, walk with me. Would you stand if you want to claim that role in your life? If you want to be a fisher of men and women, if you want to live a life as a person who is not just a consumer, but a dealer, if you want to say, you know what, I don't just want to come, I want to go. I don't just want to receive, I want to give. I don't just want to get information, I want transformation. I don't just want to live in this city, I want to transform this city. If you don't just want to say, I go to Surprise Church, but you want to say, I am Surprise Church, I am the surprise of God to a world in need, just pray with me right now with your hands open if you so choose, and ask God to let that be true in your life. Heavenly Father, I pray that we do not settle for a lesser story. And man, I believe, God, that American Christianity is suffering from believing a lie that was fed to us since the 1950s, that just come. Just come, man. That's all you need to do. The orphanage employees will just feed you. Come, stay infants, and then come back. Keep giving. Just come. What a disservice. We repent, for we have undersold the gospel message that is meant to change lives, so that people could go out and change lives, so that those people could go out and change lives, and fish for people who fish for people, to make disciples who make disciples, to lead leaders who lead leaders who make leaders, to plant churches that plant churches to plant churches. None of us would be here if that wasn't taken seriously by people who gave everything that the message would be alive in Bismarck, North Dakota. So God, we receive the call today. And for someone, God, there's some people in the room who don't know Jesus yet. Let right now your open hands be your proclamation that you don't want to live life alone anymore, that you don't want to live outside the story anymore. Your open hands represent your yes at this moment. Yes, God, I want to be a part of your story. I want you to be my hero, my forgiver and leader. I accept you right now into my life. I accept the call not just to follow you, but to help people fish for you. I don't know how to do that yet, so Jesus, teach me how. And let me not be so afraid of intimacy and accountability and community that I don't let people in to help me talk about you, think about you, dream about you, pray about you, so that I can go and live for you. For the rest of us, God, who maybe say we are Jesus followers, we confess that we've just been following and not leading. We confess that we've just been in the net and not casting the net. This week it changes. This changes this week. Say amen if you're with me. This changes this week. I'm going now back to work this week. I'm going back to school, back to my home, back to my neighbor. I'm going back as a fisher. I'm going to rethink. I'm not just looking at the beach saying, what great waves. I'm looking at the beach saying, where are the fish? I'm not just looking at my property saying, what do I want to keep and what do I want to sell on BizMan? I'm looking at it and saying, how can I use what you've given me to reach the people around me? How can I display and dispense the story? And who do I need to actually say, you know what, I can't do this unless we talk and pray together. We want to live life on life, and we want to live life in community, in the missional community of God. And it's so counterculture. If we don't know a person that we can do that with, I just pray that you make these connections. God, help us as a community to integrate one another, to minister to each other, to be priests to one another, to teach each other gospel fluency. Because if we can't talk about you together, trying outside is a joke. Teach us how to be fluent in gospelese. Come, Holy Spirit, as we sing. In Jesus' name.
Amen.